More and more, it sounds like Joe Judge knows he's coming back because Joe Judge waxed poetically today on the giant future of Daniel Jones, the same Daniel Jones that can't play NFL football because he has a neck injury. He's not allowed to have any contact. You may even hear the term hangman's fracture here in the next couple days. We're working on trying to figure that thing out in a second. But Joe Judge is so confident he's coming back. He also wanted Giant fans to know that your quarterback's coming back. What a glorious day for Giant fans. You get your coach back. You got your quarterback coming back. Things are good. Good afternoon, Evan. How are you today? Yeah.
I mean, not as good as you.
I'm
you
in
seem
a fine
to be
mood
enjoying
always.
the idea that Joe Judge and Daniel Jones could return next year.
Listen,
why?
I'm not a Giant fan. I'm not a Giant fan.
So you root for their ill will?
Not even a little bit.
You're laughing at the idea of those guys coming back.
No, I think it's funny that Joe Judge thinks he's coming back.
Oh, okay.
Meaning somebody might have told him he's coming back. But Joe Judge talking about anything that has to do with the future of the New York Giants beyond the next month, because I recognize 2 weeks from now is the future in theory. I'm talking about the offseason, the draft, next season. Mm-hmm. Joe Judge talking about anything having to do with anything beyond this season is comical to me. But he's talking, and he seems to me, I could be wrong, like he's more emboldened every time we hear from him now about his future here. And now he's talking about Daniel Jones' future. Now, I recognize it doesn't mean a hill of beans.
He's also not going to say, yeah, Daniel Jones sucks. I don't plan on bringing him back.
Listen, he could come out and say Daniel Jones and our offense has been a big disappointment this year. So I don't know what the future holds. Like, it's okay to put Danny Jones on the hot seat publicly. I know you don't want to do it when the guy's hurt because that seems like a bad look. But this guy thinks he's coming back. And he wanted all Giant fans to know, we believe in Daniel Jones. He's making great strides. And when he's allowed to play football, he's going to be our quarterback. Yeah. If I was a Giant fan, and I'm not, that would bother me a little bit.
Which aspect?
This close to Christmas.
Joe Judge coming back, or the confidence that Daniel Jones deserves another opportunity?
The blind confidence that Daniel Jones is kind of by default, according to Joe Judge. That's our guy. That's our guy.
I don't believe him.
You mean the same guy that's got a worse record than Sam Darnold?
I don't believe him. You're choosing to believe that? Like, let's say Joe Judge.
He believes it.
No, but let's just say Joe Judge is coming back. Because I acknowledge that the odds favor that John Mara may get rid of Dave Gettleman, which we all expect, but keep Joe Judge. I acknowledge that. Let's say Joe Judge is coming back.
Yeah.
He inherited Daniel Jones.
Yep.
You really think that Joe Judge, in a third year as head coach, knowing, hey, the seat's going to get a little bit hotter for me, you think he'd want Daniel Jones as his quarterback?
It's a great question, Evan. I can give you my opinion because obviously we don't know, and I guess that's what you're asking for. As opposed to whom?
As opposed to going out and acquiring a better quarterback.
A
veteran quarterback. No, the draft.
You're talking solely like the Russell Wilson thing,
well,
right?
Russell Wilson thing, sure, yeah. Because if you draft a quarterback, the appeal that you have in drafting a quarterback is more time. That's what Joe Judge gets.
And he don't have time.
Right. He doesn't. He needs to win. Like, at some point, the New York Giants need to win football games. At some point, Joe Judge has to win football games. So there are two aspects to Daniel Jones. We can debate what he's done here. You pointed it out. I crunched the numbers. Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones' numbers are identical. The facts are the facts.
Yeah.
Whether it's win-loss record, touchdowns to turnovers, they have been very similar in their 3 years of production. But the other aspect of Daniel Jones that you didn't have as much with Sam is that you don't know if this guy can stay healthy.
Well, I'll do you one better, and let's go more macro than can he stay healthy. Is he going to be allowed to play again? There are some circles in the NFL that believe Daniel Jones will never play football again. Now, we all saw him in street clothes, obviously, before their game against the Chargers this past weekend. And he looks great physically.
Right.
He's making throws. He's rolling out. He's doing all the stuff physically. But it's the question of taking a hit. And I want to be clear about that. Daniel Jones could go out tomorrow and play a flag football game. No problem. He can make the throws. He's good. He has an injury inside his neck that scares the doctors, as I understand it enough, where they believe right now, Evan, in the moment, And again, this is not, I want to be very clear. I'm saying this because I recognize, the power of what I'm about to say. This is the thought process of people in the NFL based on how the Giants have handled Daniel Jones' return from this injury. The thought process from people who would know better than me and you is that if the doctors are not letting him get hit, and that's very key to this whole thing, he's not cleared for contact. So in other words, if they're having a T-shirt and shorts practice today, Daniel Jones can be the A-team quarterback, right?
Right.
He can't get hit. And the thought process amongst the medical community and people in the NFL is that he has some type of fracture or something in his neck where they are concerned that if he got hit in the wrong manner, he's going to be paralyzed. And they will not allow him or clear him to be hit because one more hit is catastrophic.
And how does that change, though? Does resting and healing allow eventually?
I'm not a doctor, Evan. I could call Dr. J and find out what he has to say.
Dr. J?
Dr. J is obviously, as you know, the pain guy. Yeah, he makes all the pain go away.
I'm sorry, when I think of Dr. J, I think of somebody else.
No, my guy, Dr. J. Yeah, he'll make all the pain go away.
Because,
so whatever, listen.
Then how could you or anyone take Joe Judge seriously?
Exactly.
That Daniel Jones is his guy next year when there's so much physical, and that's not even debating his merits as quarterback, which we can do. We can discuss what we've seen for 3 years. We've had 3 years to watch every snap the man's ever taken. Forget that for a second. From a health standpoint, Craig, how could Joe Judge or anyone in the Giant organization look at him as somebody that deserves a fourth year or you can trust with a fourth year?
You can't. Right now, he's the go-to because you don't have the other guy yet, and you haven't been in that world yet. But, hey, listen, if you're a diehard Giant fan, here's the reality. Your head coach thinks he's coming back. He's talking like he's coming back. And in the moment right now, today, even though he's not allowed to play, and there's a chance he'll never play another down of football, the rhetoric is Daniel Jones is your guy. Now, you can react to that however you want. I think we're going to read through the lines a little bit here and recognize that John Mara's got 3 really big decisions he has to make. Number 1 is general manager. Number 2 is head coach. Number 3 is quarterback. And ultimately, who's making those 3 decisions? So I don't care what Joe Judge says. It's just funny to me that a guy who's accomplished nothing, nothing, in his almost 2 years now as the head coach is talking with the arrogance of a guy who thinks he's coming back.
And you know what that does, I think, and I've always been a proponent of, no matter what the record is, no matter what the draft situation is, I'm going to root for my team. It is putting the Giant fan in a very awkward situation over these last 4 weeks. They're better off with them losing. They're better off with them losing, not only because of the obvious of draft pick and where you're picking, which is the same every single season when you're bad. But you're better off losing because if you're out there right now and you hear Craig laughing about Joe Judge coming back and it bothers you, not that they're mad at you, they're mad at the idea of Joe Judge coming back.
As they should be.
There's only one thing that would cause him not to come back.
Lose out.
And that's a colossal failure over the next 4 weeks. And I'm not endorsing this because as a fan, I've had my difficulties ever rooting against my team. Last year as a Jet fan was one of the most difficult seasons I ever had. When it seemed obvious to root against him so you could pick number 1, that was tough for me. But if you're a Giant fan, especially with Mike Glennon starting at quarterback, what are you rooting for? Like when you sit there on Sunday against Dallas and then the week after against Philly. I know you hate those teams, but at the end of the day, winning does you what? Mike Glennon gets a victory? Yippity-doo-dah. Like, the Giant fan is being put in a spot, and I feel bad for them because I hate this. You're in a spot where you're going to sit there on Sunday rooting against your team. Like, what the hell's the benefit to sitting there rooting for a Giant win? Because all wins does, it would ensure Joe Judge coming back was to give John Mara the false hope of, well, we're heading in the right direction.
I think it's very simple. If you think Joe Judge is the guy, go ahead and win a couple games, big deal. If you think it's time to clean the entire house out, including the closets, then you lose out, you get a better draft pick, and you start fresh. And that's what, at this point, I mean, listen, you are a double-digit dog at home against your hated rival. Tell me the last time the New York Giants were a double-digit dog at home against the Dallas Cowboys. Tell me when that's happened. It's happening right now. You are in the middle of the worst run of New York Giant football of all time. And this guy thinks he's coming back, and he's bringing the average quarterback with him. Fantastic. We'll get all your calls on it. Plus, I have a question. And I want you to contemplate the question, Evan, as we go through the break, okay? Mm-hmm. Contemplate an answer to a question I have for you because it impacts you more than anybody I know. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry is on the jock right now of Buck Showalter.
I've noticed that.
Buck Showalter is a known quantity. If he's so effing special, why the hell haven't they hired him? Why are they interviewing 5 other people and now 2 other people? And I'm not knocking Buck, but I've never seen anything like this where the assembled media has all decided together that this guy is the only guy that can lead the Mets to the promised land, and they're still meeting other people. Those 2 things don't jive. Evan maybe can tell me why after the break, because I don't understand it. I'd like somebody to explain that to me.
I have an answer.
If he's so special, he's been sitting out there waiting for somebody to hire him, and nobody's hired him. And the Mets, if they want him, they could have him. They could have had him yesterday. They could have had him a year ago. They could have had him a month ago. They could have had him a week ago. They could have him today. And yet, they don't pull the trigger. I don't get that at all, but you'll explain to me, hopefully.